Hello, curious minds, and welcome. If today we use words like logic, energy, ethics, or politics, it's largely thanks to a single man. He wasn't just Plato's most brilliant student, nor merely the tutor to history's greatest conqueror, Alexander the Great. He was, as Dante called him, the master of those who know. We're talking about Aristotle of Stagira. But why dedicate our time to him today, more than 2 millennia later? Because Aristotle didn't offer us mystical answers, but a system, a method for understanding absolutely everything, from the falling of a leaf to the nature of human happiness and the very structure of the cosmos. His fundamental question wasn't what lies beyond, but how does what's here work? On this journey, we're going to unpack this titan. We'll explore 3 pillars of his thought. First, his toolkit, logic, the system he invented for correct reasoning. Second, his vision of reality, metaphysics, which will lead us to his most perplexing and fascinating concept, the unmoved mover. And third, his guide for life, ethics, his pursuit of eudaimonia, or human flourishing. Before we begin, a quick note. To bring this narrative to life, I've used artificial intelligence tools to generate the images you see. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and atmosphere of what we're discussing. They won't always be a literal representation, but a visual accompaniment to let your imagination soar with me. I truly hope you enjoy it. To understand Aristotle, we first need to understand his teacher, Plato. At 17, Aristotle traveled to Athens and joined Plato's academy, the intellectual hub of the world. He spent 20 years there, first as a student and then as a teacher. But despite his profound respect for Plato, his inquisitive mind led him to a fundamental break with him. Plato was an idealist. He believed that true reality wasn't in this sensible world, which is merely a shadow, but in a perfect, unchanging world of forms. To know the truth, one had to use reason to recollect these perfect forms. Aristotle, on the other hand, was an empiricist. He looked around and said, no, reality is this. It's here in the things we can touch, see, and smell. Upon Plato's death, Aristotle left Athens. He tutored Alexander the Great, a position that afforded him immense resources. He then returned to Athens and founded his own school, the Lyceum. Unlike the academy, the Lyceum was a center of empirical research. Aristotle and his students, called peripatetics because they walked while they discussed, collected plants, studied political constitutions, and dissected animals. Aristotle's project was nothing short of classifying and understanding all human knowledge. He divided knowledge into 3 broad branches: theoretical sciences like metaphysics, physics, and mathematics, which seek knowledge for its own sake; practical sciences like ethics and politics, which seek knowledge for action; and poetic sciences like rhetoric and theater, which seek knowledge for creation. Now, to build this colossal edifice of knowledge, Aristotle needed a solid foundation. He needed a set of tools, an instruction manual for thought itself. This tool is what we today call logic. He called it analytics, and his writings on it were compiled into a work called the Organon, which literally means the tool. For Aristotle, logic is not a science in itself, but the propedeutic, the preparatory study for all other sciences. It is the art of valid inference. It doesn't tell you what to think, but how to think correctly. It deals with the structure of our arguments, ensuring that if we start from true premises, our conclusion will necessarily be true. The centerpiece of his logic is the syllogism. It's a simple but incredibly powerful argument structure consisting of 2 premises and a conclusion. The classic example we all know, premise 1, all men are mortal. Premise 2, Socrates is a man. Conclusion, therefore Socrates is mortal. The conclusion inevitably follows from the premises. This may seem obvious, but it was revolutionary. Aristotle was the first to formalize it. He analyzed all possible forms of syllogisms, identifying which were valid and which were fallacies. He gave us a method to verify if an argument makes sense or if someone is trying to mislead us with empty rhetoric. It's the source code of Western critical thought. The power of the syllogism is that it separates the form of an argument from its content. You can have a perfectly logically valid syllogism that is factually false because its premises are false. For example, all cats are green. Mishi is a cat. Therefore, Mishi is green. The argument is logically valid, but the conclusion is false because the first premise is false. On the other hand, you can have an invalid argument with true premises. All dogs are mammals. All cats are mammals. Therefore, all cats are dogs. Both premises are true, but the structure is incorrect. The conclusion doesn't follow. Aristotle taught us to hunt down these fallacies, these errors in the form of reasoning. But before we can make syllogisms, we need to know what we're talking about. Aristotle also addressed this with his theory of categories. He asked, what are the most fundamental types of things we can say about something? What are the basic building blocks of language and reality? He identified 10 categories. The most important is substance, ousia, which is the thing in itself. For example, this horse or this man, it is that which is not predicated of anything else, but rather that of which other things are predicated. It is the fundamental subject. Without substance, we can predicate nothing. We can say nothing. The other 9 categories are accidents, properties that may or may not belong to a substance. These include quantity, like 2 meters tall, quality, like white or brave, relation, like larger than, place, time, position, state, action, and passion. These categories are the fundamental grammar of reality. So with the categories, Aristotle gave us the bricks, the basic words and concepts. With the syllogism, he gave us the mortar, the method for combining those bricks and building solid arguments. This tool, the organon, allowed him to move from simply thinking to constructing a complete system of the universe. And that brings us to his first philosophy, metaphysics. The word metaphysics actually comes from how his works were organized. His writings on first philosophy came after the physics, metaphysica, but the name fits perfectly. It is the study of being qua being. It doesn't study this or that object, but the fundamental nature of existence itself. It asks, what is being? What is real? This is where Aristotle truly diverges from Plato. For Aristotle, every individual object in this world, every substance, is a unit composed of 2 inseparable principles. We cannot have one without the other. These 2 principles are matter, hyle, and form, morph. This is called hylomorphism. Let's think of a bronze statue of Athena. The matter is the bronze. It's the out of which it is made. The bronze itself is not a statue, it's just potentiality. The form is the idea or essence of Athena, the structure that the sculptor imposes on the bronze. You can't have the statue without the bronze, and it's not a statue until the bronze has that form. They are a single unit. This idea of hylomorphism solved a problem that obsessed earlier philosophers, the problem of change. Heraclitus said that everything flows, and you can't step into the same river twice. Parmenides said that change is an illusion because being is and non-being is not. How can something not be and then be? Aristotle solves it with his hylomorphism. Change is not a leap from non-being to being. It is matter, which already is in potency, losing one form and acquiring a new one. When a green apple, matter apple form green, ripens, it becomes a red apple, matter apple form red. The matter, the apple, persists. There was no creation from nothing. It's crucial to understand this. Aristotle's form is not Plato's form. The Platonic form exists in a separate celestial world. The Aristotelian form only exists in matter. There is no hoarseness floating in the sky. There is the form of horse that exists inseparably in this particular horse, and in that one, and in that one. This idea has profound implications. For Aristotle, the soul, psyche, is simply the form of a living body. Just as the form of an axe is its capacity to cut, the form of a human being is its capacity to live, feel, and fundamentally reason. The soul is not a ghost in the machine. It is the functional organization of the body. Body and soul are a single substance. Okay, we have matter and form, but how do we explain change? How does something go from being one thing to being another? To understand anything completely, Aristotle says, we must know its 4 causes, or more accurately, its 4 explanations. Let's go back to our bronze statue. The material cause is that out of which it is made. It's the bronze. It's the substratum that persists through change. The formal cause is its form, its essence. It's the design in the sculptor's mind, the structure of Athena, that makes the bronze a statue and not an ingot. The efficient cause is the primary agent of change. It's the sculptor and their tools. It's the what or who made it. And finally, the most important of all for Aristotle, the final cause, or telos. It's the for what of the thing. The purpose? In this case, it might be to honor the goddess or to beautify the temple. Aristotle saw telos everywhere, especially in nature. The universe is not random. Everything has an inherent purpose. The telos of an acorn is to become an oak tree. The telos of an eye is to see. The telos of a spider is to spin a web. The entire natural world is a system of purposes. This concept of telos is linked to another of his great ideas, the distinction between potency, dynamis, and actuality, entelikeia. The acorn is potentially an oak. It is not potentially a cow. It has the inherent capacity to become an oak. The mature oak is the actuality of that acorn. It is the realization of its potential, the fulfillment of its telos. Let's think about the hierarchy of being that this implies. At the bottom, you have prime matter, pure potentiality without form, something almost unthinkable. As we move up, things have more form and actuality. A rock, a plant, an animal, a human. At the absolute apex, there must be something that is pure form, with no matter, no potentiality whatsoever. So for Aristotle, all change in the universe is simply the process of something potential becoming actual. Motion is the actualization of a potentiality. A piece of wood, which is potentially hot, becomes actually hot when fire, an efficient cause, acts upon it. It's an elegant and comprehensive system for describing the world. Now brace yourselves, because here's where Aristotle's logic leads him to his most mind-bending conclusion. We see motion everywhere. This ball moves because I kicked it. I move because my muscle contracted. My muscle contracted because my brain sent a signal. Every motion is caused by another motion. But, Aristotle asks, can this chain of what moves recede into infinity? He says no. An infinite regress of causes is logically impossible. If all motion is the actualization of a potential by something that is already in act, there must be something at the beginning of the chain, something that moves without being moved. This something is the proton kinun akhenaton, the unmoved mover. It is the first cause of all motion in the universe. It has to be eternal because if it ever began, something else must have moved it. And it has to be unchangeable because to change is to pass from potency to act, and this being can have no potential. It must be pure actuality, pure entelechia. This cosmology dominated Western thought for nearly 2,000 years. It's important to understand that for Aristotle, this wasn't poetry. It was science. It was rigorous logical deduction based on observation, everything moves, and the principle of non-contradiction. There cannot be an infinite regress. The unmoved mover wasn't an option, it was a necessity. And although physics has changed, the metaphysical question persists. Why is there something rather than nothing? Does the universe need a first cause, or can it explain itself? Modern physicists and philosophers continue to debate these questions that Aristotle first formulated with such clarity. But if it's unmoved, how does it move the universe? Here's the genius. It doesn't move by pushing like an efficient cause, it moves as a final cause. It moves the universe in the same way that an object of desire moves the one who desires it. The unmoved mover is a perfect being, pure actuality, contemplating itself. And the entire universe, the sphere of fixed stars, moves out of love for that perfection, trying to imitate it. This God of Aristotle is not the personal God of Abrahamic religions. It didn't create the world is eternal. It doesn't answer prayers, it isn't even aware of us. It is a logical principle, a metaphysical necessity. It is pure thought thinking about itself, noesis noeseos, absolute perfection that by its mere existence inspires all motion and the telos of creation. Having established how the universe works, from the logic of a sentence to the motor that moves the stars, Aristotle turns his formidable intellect to a more practical question. What is our place in this cosmos? What is the telos of a human being? This leads us from metaphysics to his masterpiece on morality, the Nicomachean Ethics. Just as the telos of an acorn is to be an oak and the telos of a knife is to cut, Aristotle asks, what is the ultimate purpose of a human being? What is that which we seek for its own sake and not as a means to something else? We seek money but only to buy things. We seek honor but only to feel good. There must be a supreme good. That supreme good, he says, everyone agrees to call eudaimonia. This Greek word is often translated as happiness, but that's a poor translation. Happiness sounds like a fleeting feeling. Eudaimonia is something deeper. It means human flourishing, a life well lived, the full actualization of our potential as human beings. It's an evaluation of an entire life. Eudaimonia, this flourishing, is not a state but an activity. It's something you do, not something you have, and it's not something that can be achieved in a day. As he said, one swallow does not make a summer, nor does one day. It is virtuous activity throughout an entire life. It's your life's project. So how do we achieve eudaimonia? Aristotle uses his function argument, ergon. The goodness of anything lies in performing its specific function well. A good flute player plays the flute well. What is the unique function of a human being? It's not just to live, plants do that too. It's not just to feel, animals do that too. Our unique function is reason. Therefore, Aristotle concludes, eudaimonia, human flourishing, consists in an activity of the soul in accordance with virtue, aret. It's not enough to have reason, we must use it well. And using it well means living virtuously. Virtue is not a thought, it's an action. It's excellence in character. Aristotle divides virtues into two types. First, intellectual virtues, which belong to the purely rational part of the soul, like wisdom, Sophia, and practical wisdom or prudence, phronesis. These are learned primarily through teaching. Second, and more famously, are the moral virtues, which belong to the non-rational part of the soul, our desires and appetites, insofar as it can listen to reason. Virtues like courage, temperance, generosity, and these, Aristotle says, aren't learned by studying, they're learned by practice. Here's one of his most influential ideas. Moral virtue is a habit, ethos. We aren't born courageous or cowardly. We are born with the potential to be either. We become courageous by doing courageous acts. We become just by doing just acts. It's practice that forms our character. We are what we repeatedly do. But what is a courageous act? How do we know what to do? Aristotle introduces his most famous doctrine, the golden mean, or the mesotes. Moral virtue is always a middle ground between two vices, a vice of excess and a vice of deficiency. It's not a mathematical average, but a mean relative to us. It's important to note that the golden mean is relative to us. It's not a mathematical average. The golden mean of food for an Olympic athlete, excess for me, is different from the golden mean for an office worker. The amount of courage required for a soldier is different from that of a librarian. This means that Aristotelian ethics requires self-knowledge. You have to know your own tendencies. If you know you naturally tend to be cowardly, Aristotle would advise you to aim a bit more towards recklessness, to land on courage. It's a conscious character correction. Take fear. A person who flees from everything and faces no danger is a coward, deficiency. A person who rushes into any danger without thought, who fears nothing, is rash, excess. The virtue, courage, is the golden mean. It's feeling fear in the right amount, for the right reasons, at the right time, and acting despite it. Take giving money. Someone who gives nothing and hoards everything is stingy, deficiency. Someone who gives everything away indiscriminately and ruins themselves is prodigal, excess. The virtue, generosity, is the golden mean. It's giving the right amount to the right people for the right reasons. Eudaimonia also requires external goods. Aristotle is very practical. He admits it's difficult, if not impossible, to be fully virtuous and flourish if you are extremely poor, sick, unattractive, or friendless. Virtue is the main thing, but fortune helps. It's an ethics for real life. Now, the big question, how do we find that golden mean in each situation? It's not easy. There's no simple rule. This is where the key intellectual virtue, phronesis or practical wisdom, comes into play. It's the ability gained through experience to perceive the situation, weigh the factors, and see what the virtuous action is. In friendship, philia is absolutely essential. It is most necessary for life. He dedicates 2 entire books of the ethics to friendship. There are friendships of utility for business and pleasure for enjoyment. But the highest friendship is the friendship of virtue, where 2 good people love each other for who they are and help each other become more virtuous. This isn't relativism. It doesn't mean anything goes. Aristotle is clear. Some actions, like murder, adultery, or malice, are bad in themselves. They have no mean. You can't commit a moderate murder, but for most actions, virtue lies in that point of balance that the person with practical wisdom can find. So, a life of eudaimonia is a life of habitual virtuous activity, guided by practical wisdom. But Aristotle goes a step further. At the end of the Ethics, he asks, what is the highest form of eudaimonia? What is the most perfect activity? Remember, our unique function is reason. The highest activity, he concludes, is the contemplative life, the life dedicated to theoria, the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. Why? Because it is the most self-sufficient activity, the most continuous, and it is the one that uses our most divine faculty, reason. By contemplating eternal truths, we resemble, if only briefly, the unmoved mover contemplating itself. Aristotle's ethics are, therefore, profoundly human. He doesn't ask us to follow divine rules, but to cultivate our character. He gives us a goal, eudaimonia. He gives us a method, habit, and the golden mean. And he gives us a tool, practical wisdom. It is an ethics of self-realization, but Aristotle is a realist. He knows we cannot become virtuous alone. An isolated individual, he says, is either a beast or a god, but we are neither. We are zoon, a political animal, or more precisely, a social animal living in a polis. For Aristotle, politics is the continuation and culmination of ethics. Ethics deals with the good of the individual, but politics deals with the good of the entire community. And since we can only achieve our eudaimonia within a community, the study of the good life inevitably leads to the study of the good state. The telos, or purpose of the state, the polis, is not mere survival, nor wealth, nor military conquest. The highest purpose of the state is to create an environment in which its citizens can live virtuous lives and achieve eudaimonia. Good politics is the architecture of virtue. Aristotle, ever the empiricist, collected and studied the constitutions of 158 Greek city-states. Based on this, he classified governments. There are 3 good forms which seek the common good, and 3 corrupt forms which seek the good of the ruler. The government of one for the common good is monarchy. Its corrupt form is tyranny. The government of a few, the best, for the common good is aristocracy. Its corrupt form is oligarchy, rule by the wealthy, and the government of many for the common good he calls politia or republic. Its corrupt form is democracy. Wait, is democracy bad? For Aristotle and Plato, yes. What they called democracy is what we would today call mob rule or populism, where the poor, being the majority, rule in their own interest, dispossessing the wealthy and creating chaos. It is the excess of freedom. So what is the best practical state? The politia republic? And what is it? It is a clever mix of oligarchy and democracy. It is a state governed by a strong middle class. The middle class, he says, is the least prone to the arrogance of the rich or the envy of the poor. It is the golden mean applied to politics. We cannot talk about his politics without addressing its darker sides. Aristotle, a man of his time, defended slavery as natural, arguing that some people are slaves by nature, fit only for physical labor. He also considered women to be inferior and incomplete beings, incapable of the same full rationality as men. These ideas are morally repugnant today and demonstrate the limits of his empiricism. Instead of questioning the power structures of Athens, his observations simply rationalized and justified them. It's a crucial reminder that even the most brilliant thinker can be profoundly blinded by the prejudices of their own culture. His analysis of rhetoric, the art of persuasion, is another pillar. Unlike Plato, who distrusted it, Aristotle treated it as an essential tool for political life. He analyzed the three modes of persuasion: logos, logical argument; pathos, appeal to emotion; and ethos, the speaker's credibility and character. However, his central idea, that humans are political beings, and that the purpose of the state is the flourishing of its citizens, resonates through the centuries. It forces us to ask, what is our government for? Is it just for economy and security, or is it for something greater? Is it to help us live well? Aristotle's scope was astonishing. He wasn't just a philosopher. He was arguably the first great biologist. He spent years on the island of Lesbos studying marine life. He dissected animals, observed the development of chicken embryos, and classified over 500 animal species in his History of Animals. His biology was guided by his telos. He sought the purpose of each organ. What are gills for? What are lungs for? He created a scala naturae, a ladder of nature, from inanimate minerals through plants, which have a nutritive soul, animals, sensitive soul, up to humans, rational soul. He even analyzed art. In his Poetics, he challenged his teacher Plato, who had banished poets from his ideal republic for being mere imitators of shadows. Aristotle agreed that art is mimesis or imitation, but argued that this imitation is something good and natural for humans. Art, especially tragedy, is not just entertainment. It has a psychological and ethical function. By seeing a tragic hero make a mistake and fall, the audience experiences pity and fear. The result is catharsis, a purgation or clarification of these emotions, which leaves us emotionally healthier and ethically more aware. Let's pause for a moment to admire the edifice. We have logic to structure thought, metaphysics describing reality from matter and form to an unmoved mover, biology classifying life, ethics guiding us towards flourishing, politics designing society, and poetics explaining art. It's a total system. After his death and after the fall of Rome, many of his works were lost to the West, but not in the Islamic world. Scholars like Avicenna, and especially Averroes in Muslim Spain, rediscovered, translated, and extensively commented on Aristotle. To them, he was simply the philosopher. It was these Arabic translations that returned to Europe in the Middle Ages. And there, a Christian theologian named Thomas Aquinas performed one of the greatest intellectual syntheses in history. He merged Aristotle's philosophy with Christian theology, using Aristotelian logic and metaphysics to construct arguments for faith. Ironically, it was Aristotle's success that led to his downfall. His system, especially his physics and cosmology, became a dogma so rigid in the church and universities that it blocked progress. The scientific revolution of Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton had to break with the Aristotelian universe to be born. But although his physics was surpassed, his ethics are experiencing a renaissance. In a world that sometimes seems divided between rigid rules, deontology, or a cold calculation of consequences, utilitarianism, Aristotle's virtue ethics offers a third way. It asks us not what rule do I follow, or what yields the best result, but what kind of person do I want to be? His logic, though expanded by modern logic, remains the foundation of critical thinking. Every time you identify a fallacy in a political debate, every time you build an argument step by step, you are walking on the ground Aristotle first mapped. He taught us not to be slaves to rhetoric. And his idea of telos, even though modern science no longer seeks purposes in physics, remains a fundamental human question. Do we have a purpose? What is the telos of our life? The pursuit of eudaimonia, of flourishing, of living a meaningful life is as relevant in our fast-paced digital world as it was in ancient Athens. Aristotle was, in essence, the architect of Western rationality. He gave us the tools for thinking, logic, a map of reality, metaphysics, and an instruction manual for living in it, ethics and politics. His drive wasn't mystical, it was taxonomic. He wanted to understand, classify, and explain. He made terrible mistakes, yes. His science was limited by his time, and his cultural prejudices blinded his social ethics. But his method, his relentless rigor, his belief that the world is intelligible and that reason is our highest guide for understanding it and living well, is a legacy we cannot ignore. As the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead said, Western philosophy is a series of footnotes to Plato. If that's true, Aristotle wrote the encyclopedia that explains those footnotes, the man who taught us to read the world right in front of us. Thank you so much for joining me on this dense intellectual journey. I hope you found it fascinating and above all useful. Aristotle is a challenge, but one that rewards us with clarity. If you enjoyed this analysis, please consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss future journeys into the heart of the ideas that shaped us. Keep thinking, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Which of Aristotle's ideas struck you the most? The golden mean, the unmoved mover, or the idea of eudaimonia? The discussion continues. See you in the next video.